Good morning, Facebook Live. Hey, it's Christy here. I'm in sunny Florida Keys. It's sunny, but it's cold today, and so I'm inside again. So I hope you'll bear with me. I wanted to show you something from my computer today anyway, so it's kind of good that I'm going to be inside. Today is day 11. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. A day 11 Facebook Live challenge. Now, if you remember, if you've been with me from day one, I started the Facebook Live challenge because I'm terrible at live streaming and I hate doing video. I'm very self-critical, and it was completely out of my comfort zone. So I decided to do a 30-day Facebook Live challenge to force myself to be more comfortable with this medium. Plus, I feel like it's sort of, I don't want to say it's sort of an experiment for my clients, but I want to figure out this Facebook Live thing so that I can then help my clients utilize it to their fullest potential as well. So, excuse me. We've been cleaning up mold in the garage, so I've got a little bit of upper respiratory stuff going on. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, and I'm going to use my screen share function with you. I think I can still use that. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm not really sure if I can. Interesting. Let me see if I can share my Facebook. I don't know how. Let me see if I thought I could do it from the other screen, but then the screen changes when I go live. So maybe I'm okay. This is part of me learning, right? Learning how to do it with Facebook Live. But I wanted to talk to you about a tool that most podcasters are completely underutilizing. It's a free tool. Sometimes as podcasters and online people, we want to get caught up on the latest tool. We want the latest thing. We want the thing that integrates with every other thing and kind of automates things for us. And that's all good. I'm all for those things. But if you're not careful, and I hate to say I'm going to have to raise my hand and say, if you're not careful, you will end up with a bunch of subscriptions every month to websites and software and things like that, that honestly, you can't even remember what the name of them are. And I found myself doing that the other day. It was a like a SEO type thing that I had bought, and I couldn't even remember the name of it because I'd paid one time for it because I got it on AppSumo. Couldn't remember the name of it, and I had to go back to my receipt in my accounts and look up what I actually got, because it's something I thought I would use, and I haven't obviously been using it very well. So you have to be careful, because you don't want to end up, I mean, those $20 and $30 a month, if they're giving you value and you're getting good use out of them, that's a great investment of your time to automate something or let it provide a service for you. However, if it's sitting there unutilized, you might be just getting hit with charges every single month from a subscription you signed up for, thinking you're using, not realizing it's not happening. So wanted to show you today. And again, like I said, I thought I could share my Facebook Live. If anybody knows how to share the screen once you're live on Facebook, let me know, because I'd love to do that. And I was just trying to look here. I don't see anything here. I'll have to Google that. So anyway, but one of the things I want to share with you is how I used Google Alerts with my podcast. Now, the one thing I used it for, I'll tell you, when I started out with my podcast, it was like 2013. It was a local business show about brick and mortar businesses, but I wasn't limited to a confined geographic area. I was just any local business all over the country. I wanted them to be able to tell their story and have a platform and share their story of small business. So I was doing a 5-day-a-week interview show while I was working my full-time job. I know, it's crazy. What was I thinking? So it's no wonder that I couldn't keep up with how to reach out to local businesses for interviews, because I wasn't a local business owner. I didn't know local business owners. So I had to force myself to send out 10 cold emails a day trying to get people to come on my podcast. And these were also people in local business who at that point in time were not even familiar with what a podcast was. And many times the response I got back from them was, well, how much will this cost me? And of course, I was like anyone else going, cost you? It's free. Come on, it'll give you free PR and all this kind of stuff. So I ended up using Google Alerts, and I use them extensively. And what I might do is do another live stream. Like once we disconnect this one, I'll do another live stream to show you my record my screen so you can see what I'm doing. But the basic premise is you set up a Google alert for keywords that your niche covers. Maybe if you are, let's just say you are covering a niche about potato farmers, or heirloom tomatoes, or something like that. What you would want to do is go into Google Alerts and you would want to type in, put in an alert for a keyword that you want Google to basically notify you anytime there is press or news or other things that are coming out. Google will find that, Google will alert you, and then that article will be right there in your inbox. And so you can just go get yourself an alert sent. So what happens is, for me, I was using it for local business. And so I would type in things like small business, local business, brick and mortar. So I would set like alerts for each one of these keywords. And then what would happen is local businesses maybe there would be a local business that was, maybe they're opening a second location and they were doing a press release to announce it. Maybe they even had a, section in the paper where they had the ribbon cutting and they had the mayor come out, and, different towns do these different things. And so you would see an article there in Google Alerts that would basically link back to the article in the local newspaper. And it would be telling you all about this store, this business that was opening a second location. They were doing all this stuff, and they were getting the word out with press. So what I would do is, there's a couple of things you could do with that. I would then try to find that. I would start Googling that business, trying to find that contact information if it wasn't included in the article. Sometimes it is included at the article because they're using those articles to get people to come to their business, so you can easily find them. And then I would go in and I would do an email to them to introduce myself and let them know how I found them, and I'll show you a template for that I have later. But I would send those out, and I would basically ask them to come on my podcast and share their story. Now, this does a couple of things. You have to think about it like this. Number one, it helps you find a local business in an area that you definitely would not have probably known about. You can also set a Google alert for a geographic area. So if you wanted to only find, articles in the Southeast or in California or in wherever, you can set the alert to define and filter out those parameters. So you can customize it as much as you want. But what was happening is, you were now getting in front of a local business owner that you across the country found out about simply because they did some sort of press event. So there's two components to that. Now, that local business owner, you're contacting them and you're saying, I found you because I saw your article in whatever, the Madison Gazette or whatever it was, about you opening your local business. And first of all, I want to say congratulations, because not many local businesses, even get to a point where they're looking to expand locations, and you did that. So congratulations. Secondly, I have a podcast, and I thought maybe what you're doing would be a great thing for you to share with my listeners who are also local business enthusiasts, about how you made the decision and what you looked at to open a second location. So you're going at them from a completely different area of the country. They know the value of the press now because they just saw it connect you from across the country. At the same time, you now have a contact for a reporter in some local area. And that reporter can then be someone you could potentially pitch, depending on what they write and what their section is, might be someone you could pitch for something about your podcast. I had a guest on my podcast one time that was a local restaurant. It was a local restaurant out in Pickens, South Carolina, and it was in the middle of nowhere. They had turned an old post office into a really, really kick-butt restaurant. And the lady that opened the restaurant had been trained under Emeril Lagasse in New Orleans. So she had just basically left his restaurant and come up to South Carolina and bought an old post office and turned it into a restaurant. So it was out roads that nobody, Highway 254 or, something like that. And so it was out in the middle of nowhere. So she had to get press. So what she did is she went ahead and wrote up 2 or 3 different articles about herself. She wrote them up completely differently, so they weren't at all just duplicate content. She wrote them up from a different perspective, covering different perspectives about what she was doing. She was committed to organic, and she was committed to to growing as much of her food there on the local property that she could, and then sourcing the rest from local farmers. So she talked about that. Then she also talked about, did one where she talked about the different types of cuisine that she was, serving at the restaurant, and how she learned to make it, and she was doing some different things. So anything, there was at a certain point in the restaurant, her husband really became obsessed with making these locally sourced ice creams, and he would, each day would have a new flavor and a different concoction. And so all of these things were aspects of the restaurant that she could basically write up in sort of like an article, like you would if you were a journalist. And then she would include images, different images, again, different copy, different images, and she would then send those out to different reporters in the local area that were putting out, articles about the lifestyle or the food section of the paper and that sort of thing. And she told me that many times they would basically just call her and verify the information and almost go with the article exactly like she had given it to them. So that was some free press for her that she got, and she didn't have to do anything but take the time to write up the article from her own perspective. So she was controlling the content. She sent it out, and it was a brilliant way to get in front of reporters and get in front of people. And before you know it, the restaurant was doing great, and it had lots of people coming out to, this Podunkville area just to go to that restaurant, because there was no other destination. There wasn't even a gas station around. So you can do things like that to get word out about your podcast. So that's one way to use Google Alerts. Another thing about Google Alerts is you can use them, and I've made a list over here for myself, so I didn't make it on the computer because I thought I was going to share my screen with you. But anyway, because I wanted to show you how to set up a Google Alert. But the other part is you can also use these Google Alerts to connect with organizations that may be in your niche. I had a podcast that was, it was about people of Italian American descent, and they were just basically hyping their heritage and talking about the different stories of connecting with, people in the old world or whatever they call it. And they were, that was the focus of their show, was the, Italian American. And they had stories, and they had trips, and they had other things that they were doing. But one of the things about it is that there is something called the Italian American Society in the United States. And the Italian American Society actually became a sponsor of the show, because they wanted all the people that were listening that also said, I'm Italian American, to join the Italian American Society. So finding organizations in your niche that might promote your niche is a great way to connect, I'm going to get the hiccups now. If for no other reason than to connect with them and say, hey, I'm here, and I want to see if there's anything you need that I can help promote on my podcast. Is there any synergies that we have? Do you have a podcast for your organization? Are you looking for someone who's already creating a podcast in the niche that might be the official podcast of your organization? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with these organizations that you might find on a Google Alert. So don't forget about that. The other thing is these Google Alerts can also be used to find potential sponsors. Right? If you are a woman that specializes in women's road racing on a bicycle, I don't know what they call that, but bicycle road racing, maybe, I don't know. Then you would want to set a Google Alert with some of those keywords in them. And if you find companies that are putting out press releases, what you would want to do is you would want to put them on your list and potentially approach them about being a sponsor of your show, because you've got the target audience they want to get in front of. Obviously, excuse me, if they're coming up in Google Alerts, they're getting press, and they're doing something, whether they're putting out a press release or an article or whatever, they're doing something to get press. So it might be a really good way to find sponsors. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the Google Alerts, and there's a lot of things that you can do to leverage what you're finding there if you sort of use it as like your secret gold mine. Now, not a lot of podcasters are using Google Alerts. They're using them sometimes in a different way than I've mentioned. You can even let me just go ahead and say it. You can set a Google Alert for yourself or your podcast. A lot of times you might see a big spike one day in downloads or something like that, and all of a sudden you're like, where was I mentioned? Well, if you set a Google Alert for your podcast or for your name and that sort of thing, it's going to come up if somebody else mentions you, or if it's getting out there in the Google webs that your podcast is on their radar. So that might help you track down the source of that traffic. The other part is that you can also use Google Alerts. I'm just going to state the obvious. You can use Google Alerts to set up an alert about what your competition's doing. So if there are other podcasts or other businesses that are competing with what you're doing, set up a Google Alert. It's just a way for you to be aware of the things that they're doing. If they become, expand, or they become they start doing something that's going to put out a press release, it'll be picked up in the Google Alerts. So let's see, Pam. Also use those alerts as opportunities to connect with other people in the community you are doing the same as you are. True. Make friends, promote them on social media, and tell your audience about the great things they're doing. Many will reciprocate with that promotion and point their audience to you. That is such an awareness thing. And Pam, that is so true, because I mean, with podcasting, it's all about building relationships anyway. And when you approach an organization or a business or something like that, you approach it out of a place of, I love what you're doing, and what you're doing is so in line with my values. And now let's see what I can, can I help promote you in any way? Because I have listeners, that could use what you're offering or your services and that sort of thing. And it's really nice when you can have those, even if it's no money changing hands, but it can be free promotion that you're getting just because of relationships. And then you never know what'll become of that, because if you stay connected to those people and top of mind to those people, when something comes along, they're going to either point people to your podcast, or they're going to connect you with businesses that might benefit from either having an interview on your podcast or maybe being a sponsor on your podcast. So there's so many things. Thank you for that tip, Pam. That's really, really good advice, because there's just so many ways you can leverage these Google Alerts and what you're finding in them. It's sort of like a gold mine that's many times untapped, because people want a quick, snazzy little software that's going to do something for them. And it doesn't necessarily do any better than you could do if you set up Google Alerts and then really, I don't want to say exploited them, but leverage them to their full potential. So I hope this is helpful to you. I might go ahead a little bit later on and do a screencast to show you how to set up a Google Alert, and then I can even show you the email template that I used to use to send out to guests, because that's the other thing, and that's probably a whole different podcast, is to show you about what a great pitch is and what a great pitch isn't, or what a great pitch, anyway, the opposite of a good pitch, a bad pitch, what a bad pitch is. Because what will happen is we focus as podcasters on ourselves so much. And we're like, I'm doing a podcast and this is what I'm going to do. And this is my target audience. And here's what we want to accomplish. And it's all about me, 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 me. And so the minute someone opens it up and reads it, they're like, this person's just wanting to promote themselves. But when you open up an email with, hi, so-and-so, I found you because I read the article in the Madison Gazette and I was so impressed with what you're doing, that automatically puts you in a whole different category. It's like, okay, now, is this someone in my local area? Is that they don't know where you are. They don't know how you found them. But they assume you read the same paper and you're just a fan. And then you proceed on and you just spend very little time talking about your show and your podcast, but then you give them a way to accept or decline your invitation to come on the show. So I'll show you that, and I'll share that with you in another one, because I thought, like I say, I thought I could share my screen once I went live, but Facebook's going to have to do. I have this other software that I use. It's called Ecamm Live that I can use for it, but I thought since Facebook included it now that I wouldn't even need Ecamm Live before, but maybe I still do need Ecamm Live. So I'll try that tomorrow and maybe share some stuff with you on that. And also tomorrow I'm going to do a special bonus. This is a bonus Facebook Live. I'll do my normal one tomorrow morning so we can talk about podcasting stuff. But then in the evening, we're doing we call it the Holly Jolly Trolley Tour. But basically it's where a whole bunch of us go into Key West and we ride the conch train, which is what like the tourists ride when they come around town and they do like the tours of the town, but it's on the conch train. And so we're going to get on the conch train. We're going to ride around and look at Christmas lights, and then the conch train plays all this Christmas music, and it's just a good time. I'm hoping it'll be a little warmer by then, because it's kind of cold right now down here. So anyway, so I hope that helps you a little bit today. I hope you'll jump in with Google Alerts and start using them and leveraging them in a way that will help your business. And, it keeps you from having to go down the Google rabbit hole when you're just Googling things and just searching for things. So please, please, please use them, set them, experiment with them. And if you figure out a way to use them that I haven't talked about, let me know, because I'd love to know how you're using them and what benefit you're getting out of them, because it's a free tool and it's very easily controllable by you. And then you can, if you find that it's casting too wide a net, you can go back and redefine your parameters on it. And it's pretty cool that you can use it that way. So thanks for joining me today. And if there's anything I can do to help you with your podcast, contact me. I love getting the feedback. So many of you are sticking with me through this challenge. You're trying to see if I figure out how to get my hair right or my makeup right or where I am today or whatever. And you're sticking with me through this challenge. And I appreciate the feedback that you're giving me. I appreciate the tips you can give me for improvement. I appreciate the encouragement you're giving me. And so thank you for coming along on this journey with me. So anything I can do for you, let me know. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.